My name is Nate. This is The Archive. We're looking at news, stories, studies, and research over the past week. Let's get into it. Starting off at the top, fantastic way to kick off 2026 is the surprise seizure and arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Maduro and his wife were taken from their home in Caracas, and this was accompanied with multiple airstrikes, killing dozens of people. There's a widely circulated photo of Maduro going around. I've seen this posted everywhere on social media as a bit of a calling card and a congratulations to the president for doing this, but it's Maduro. He's blindfolded. He's in very casual wear, like sweatpants and a sweatshirt. And he's holding a water bottle as he's cuffed. Pretty funny photo in my opinion. But the reason for his capture, he was indicted on multiple charges for narco-terrorism conspiracy, conspiracy to import cocaine, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. He was originally indicted back in 2020 in the Trump administration. I believe by William Barr was the AG at the time. He was indicted on narco-terrorism charges with a $15 million reward for any information leading to his arrest. The reward was increased to $25 million in January 2025 when the Trump administration version 2 came back, and again was increased to $50 million in August 25. He had entered a guilty plea after being arraigned in New York, and he has a hearing expected out and around the middle of March. In his place, after he was captured, was Delcy Rodriguez, that is his VP, that was appointed to interim president by the Venezuelan Supreme Court, and she has been very, very highly critical of the U.S. operation, as one might expect. But you know, I think part of this, you kind of have to look at Maduro's rep sheets. Like, what has he done? Why is he being captured? Why is he being charged? He has a very long record of doing pretty horrible things. The 2019 and 2024 elections are considered to be disputed by international experts, with the 2024 one, especially. That one seemed to have been a blowout by his opponent, Edmundo Gonzalez. The primary, I guess, like revolutionary oppositional force to Maduro back in 2024. He has a long rep of state control and suppression of speech. There are many human rights violations under his leadership. He has ties to drug trafficking, which is the primary reason that he was abducted by the U.S. government in the first place. And he also is done a lot of political corruption. A lot of political corruption has happened underneath his watch. But knowing that, and knowing that the operation has kicked off, there's a lot of different responses to Maduro's capture. The Senate had met quickly to review. They were seeking to block Trump from any further military action in Venezuela. And they succeeded. The results were 53 to 47, a vote in the Senate, with 5 Republicans breaking away from the party to vote with the rest of the Democrats. This is just a procedural measure to bring the issue to the main floor of the Senate, which will be heard this week. And if anything happens, like they require, I believe it's 60 votes in the Senate and the House to win. And if they want to actually stop Trump from doing this, because he's probably going to veto it if it passes both houses of Congress, they need, I think it's 2/3 approval from both houses in order to make it into effect. Obviously, Trump was very frustrated with the Republicans who had voted against him. He was saying that, we're going to wish you well in the 2026 election or future elections. They shouldn't have their seat anymore. And a lot of this also kind of stems from previous votes back in November of 2025 with regards to the numerous drug boat bombings that had occurred. Those had been brought to the floor for procedural votes, but did not pass to the degree that this one did. Marco Rubio, he is the Secretary of State. He's been working on a lot of damage control. He has a plan, I guess a 3-pronged plan that he's been trying to push out, trying to steer away from the Trump tweets about these and the Trump talking points about them, and just trying to come up with like his own like administration standard. And these 3 points are for stabilization of Venezuela, recovery, and transition. He said, quote, "We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime." VP Vance, JD Vance, has also taken his foot into the ring. He's been asserting that the oil is stolen and will be returned to the U.S., and says that the operation was not illegal as Maduro was indicted. Several world leaders have been put off by this, not just by this, but Trump has kind of been threatening a lot of other nations, Colombia, Mexico, and also Greenland. We're resurging the old 2019 meme of Trump wants to buy Greenland and put a Trump Tower on it. So we're kind of going through those discussions there. So a little bit of world leaders are a bit shaky after what had happened, and just want, I guess, a bit of clarity and a bit of security with regards to what might happen next. As far as my take is concerned, again, this is just like a little bit of a high-level overview. I think that Maduro has a very long history of political abuses, and I think he's a really bad guy, and he should be put away. But I think that the operation to capture Maduro was legally dubious. Trump didn't have any real authority or approval to Congress to be able to execute this raid. I think that it's very odd that we're trying to move towards seizing the oil, though I can kind of see the Trump idea of the oil should be going to China and Russia as at a super discounted rate. It should be market standard for the most part. And I don't really see any kind of like plan or aftermath for the country. I don't think that there's anything clear. I think that after the operation was successful, I think the Trump administration might have just been, oh, shoot, this happened. Okay, we kind of need to come up with some kind of plan, which they don't have. And it almost feels like a shoddy regime change kind of thing. This also seems to just be a continuation of the Trump revenge tour. I really didn't want this to happen when he was going through his re-election efforts in 2024. He basically just does whatever he wants and seems to get away with it all the time. I think it's a very blatant abuse of the balance of power. The second Trump admin is very clear in its demonstration of executive overreach, and there's really no stopping it, at least in my opinion from what I've seen. The courts haven't been able to really stop it. Congress hasn't really been able to stop it. Public pressure really hasn't been able to stop it. Trump just, again, kind of just does what he wants for whatever benefit that has towards him. I think that a lot of those other checks are, trying to move towards getting him to stop or slowing the operations down. But those are very, very reactive kind of stances to take. And those come slow because they're following the process for being able to stop it, while Trump is just able to just do what he wants and then accept the consequences possibly months down the line, if there ever are any. With Congress, we'll see how that vote looks in the Senate next week, or this week if this is when the video comes out. But again, we'll see what the aftermath looks like, and probably the aftermath of what happens to Venezuela months or years down the line. Moving on down my list of things I want to talk about, health and wellness. I care a lot about health and wellness. I think my professional career, I've kind of worked in a lot of health-related fields and companies. I guess bouncing around a little bit, but still with a bit of a health focus. So it's very interesting for me to kind of keep on that health note. So I wanted to talk about some stuff here. And there's been a lot of, momentum in the health space generally. So HHS, the Department or the Health and Human Services, they unveiled two kind of big things. First of which is the new food pyramid. They basically had it one way and then flipped it over on its end. I've started getting more serious into working out and eating a little bit better. And actually, this new food pyramid kind of reflects the things that I've seen in terms of portions of proteins, fruits and vegetables, and grains that I should be consuming, which is pretty interesting. A lot of people kind of see this as like a RFK takeover. Now he is like kind of getting steam in HHS right now. And a lot of people are kind of put off by the fact that, oh, government shouldn't be telling us what we should and shouldn't eat. But I kind of see it as a different thing. I kind of see it as like a changing of standards, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with government putting out standards for people to, like, they see it and, hey, here's the gold standard for how we can move forward. I'm totally fine with that. Like, I like standards because, everyone's kind of doing the same thing in a sense that advances towards, some kind of goal or direction. Again, this is just like more so of a reflection of an ideal on positions and research to help advance things. I mean, it's similar to, I guess, like, say, like drug development, something like that. Like, hey, we have some standards how, like, some kind of clinical trial should run. We want the standard to be X, Y, and Z, and that's great. I think that's a good thing. It makes it easier for certain companies to kind of go and like, okay, what's the model that we should be going with? It should be this. Great. Makes it easier for research to be completed in that sense. Less of a good thing on this next topic from what the HHS has done, at least in a little bit of a sense. They had released a new vaccine schedule for children. A lot of this decision was based on a review of peer nations, so places like Germany, Australia, Portugal, places like that, where they had a reduced number of vaccinations that they were giving children compared to the US. The US, we had actually been giving a ton more vaccinations, quote unquote, a ton, to children. So they wanted to revise that schedule a little bit since we were a bit of an outlier. So the number of vaccines for children have gone down from 17 to 11. So 6 were taken out. Those vaccines were for hepatitis A, hepatitis B, rotavirus, meningococcal disease, influenza, and COVID. A lot of this also has to do with restoring trust to the public health institutions. One of the doctors has been quoted saying that public health works only when people trust it. That trust depends on transparency, rigorous science, and respect for families. This decision recommits the HHS to all three. And even though a lot of people are probably going to be up in arms because, oh, we're revising the vaccine schedule, this will probably like cost if we want to get our kid vaccinated. It's not the case, at least per what the HHS is saying. Dr. Oz is saying that all vaccines currently recommended by the CDC will remain covered by insurance without cost sharing. No family will lose access. This framework empowers parents, and physicians to make individualized decisions based on risk while maintaining strong protection against serious disease. They had released a memo kind of along the same lines, which include those quotes. They had released a memo along the same lines saying that their reasoning, they had listed all the reasonings for removing those 6 vaccines from the schedule. I find some of it a little bit odd. I'm going to pick on rotavirus a little bit just because in my Candace Owens video, I talked a little bit about rotavirus. They had a whole paragraph block about RotaShield, which was a 90s vaccine that was revoked due to a high number of adverse events that had happened. It also pointed to a bunch of countries that had removed those vaccines from their schedule, but they don't seem to mention that others still have it in there for whatever reason. For example, Portugal, they had removed rotavirus from there, but after checking their website, they still have meningococcal disease, they still have influenza, and they still have hepatitis B on the list. I think the issue with this is more so of a stance of like, okay, what are we actually like trying to do here? I think I'm fine with adding or removing vaccines from the schedule so long as there is data to reflect that decision. I think it would be very useful for HHS to put forward a comparison table between the old US schedule, the new US schedule, and all these different peer countries. I think it would also be useful to compare incidence rates and severity rates of these diseases between the US and these peer nations. Again, picking on rotavirus a little bit, I think the issue comes when people say that, oh, rotavirus isn't actually that bad, like in the US, like there's so few cases, because the issue with rotavirus is like in other countries where there isn't as, I guess, rigorous hygiene for the population, it's much worse. I don't think it's fair to say that, oh, it's worse in these other countries compared to the first world countries. We just want to compare the first world countries to each other. If the incidence rate for hepatitis B was considerably higher than all these peer countries that we decided to align to, I think then there's a justification for keeping hepatitis B vaccine on there. Like that's the kind of data and comparison that I think that they should be doing, but I don't know if they are. Again, and additionally, I think that some of the issue with HHS right now is like they show concern about like some of the knowledge gaps that they have with regards to studying the vaccines, but they bring up VAERS, VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, something like that. And I really don't like VAERS as a system. It's entirely self-reported, so there's no good way to verify that those adverse events actually happened. They had mentioned some other systems that report it, but I mean, to their credit, it's kind of difficult to be able to track those kinds of things. Thankfully, this doesn't really seem like a departure from like what people fear RFK could be in terms of all vaccines are bad, if that's actually his position. I don't know if it is. I don't think it is. This seems like a proposal towards being more smart about the vaccines that we administer. But unfortunately, I don't think that smart vaccine treatment is the way that's being given off from the memo that they had released. I think that they still have like a little bit to go in regards to that. Next on the list of things I wanted to talk about is tech. I'm a somewhat techie guy. Went to school for computer science. I'm not the smartest tech guy in the world, but I think it still interests me in terms of what new and emerging technologies we have coming around the corner. This one really isn't with regard to new technologies. It's more so the possible advancement of current technology. Discord. This is a video messaging and chat platform, mostly used by gamers, kind of advertised for gamers. I use it all the time, just talking with friends. They had made their first steps towards being publicly traded. They had made their initial public offering, IPO. They had made some listings to Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. And this will lead to them going public, listed on the stock market. This will be the first sales of stock, and it could result in some massive growth for the company. There hasn't been any confirmation of whether or not any kind of deals have went through yet. But from the articles that I've read, there might be some kind of movement in February or March. One thing that I had caught when looking at this article was some criticism about Discord possibly going public. This journalist had stated that, these issues, like this other now public techie companies going public have resulted in the platform's getting considerably worse. There's a lot more AI slop. There's a lot more abuse. They only care about the shareholders and not the actual consumers. And possibly, I think, looking at some of the examples that they gave, like I can see that a little bit. But I think that's very unfair to say that going public for this company who has been pretty, I think, very user-centric, will definitely result in worse software being implemented. If anything, like the more capital that Discord is able to generate from going public could be used to fuel more and better features, especially if they're trying to attract more and more of an audience of people in. It absolutely costs money to be able to buy servers and host people to be able to be on there and to especially like stream stuff. Like streaming costs a ton of money. So like obviously you need a lot of capacity to be able to host all these people at once. So hopefully the additional capital will help fuel a lot of those resources. But we can never know right now, and we don't even know if this decision will go forward. maybe if they do go forward, and I hope for the best, and they'll be able to make a nice, better app, better software for people to utilize and have fun with. All right, last of my topics I wanted to talk about. I saw a very interesting set of parallels over the past week with regards to Minnesota and Ohio. So I live in Ohio, but some of the stories that I had across the two states that I was reading definitely kind of sparked my ear, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. First of them is the two states, Minnesota and Ohio. They join 17 other states that have increased their minimum hourly wage. Some of these are largely due to inflation adjustments, so they really aren't that big. Ohio and Minnesota, they had increased their minimum wage about 30 cents per hour. And the most drastic change that we've seen is about $2 per hour increase, seen in places like Nebraska and Hawaii. Generally, I'm opposed to minimum wage laws. I think it creates a very artificial floor. I think it reduces the number of low-wage jobs that might exist, which can crowd out people that might not have some experience that people are looking for. I think it's a lot of higher pressure on existing employees who need to do more for employers to be able to justify their pay. And I think it does have some kind of impact on consumer prices to help offset those pay increases. Obviously, the scale of this can differ. I've seen a lot of different data that suggests that, the difference of that isn't that high, like this really is like a marginal increase and it kind of offsets itself over time. But again, I think a lot of that is, I'm not that big of a fan of, implementing them for those changes. There, again, a lot of disputed data that kind of goes up and around, but from what I've seen, the effects are like a little bit marginal, but I'm still a little bit wary of that. Next on the docket for Minnesota and Ohio, both are having fun with elections. 2026 elections are right around the corner. The midterms, everyone loves midterms. Those will be coming up in November, so about 10 months from now. Starting with Minnesota, Governor Walz, Tim Walz, he was the VP pick for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. He has just dropped out of running for re-election as governor. This would have been his third term. I think a lot of this, I don't think it was directly involved, but he definitely has been facing some rising pressure on claims of fraud within his state, which we'll talk about later. So he's out. He seems to be pushing on Amy Klobuchar, a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, to take his place. Might be interesting. I wasn't too fond of Klobuchar's performance during those primaries, so we'll see what happens in that race a little bit later down the line. Moving on to the Ohio governor race, that one's definitely picking up some steam. The front runner, I don't know if he's the front runner, but he's definitely the, if the Republican side has already made their decision. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's named his running mates on the Republican side, and Mike DeWine is has already given him an endorsement. That race is heating up a bit. Vivek seems to be losing a little bit of ground against Amy Acton, so we'll see how that race plays out. It's definitely pretty close. We're in a purple state in Ohio, so we'll kind of see how that one shakes out. And then last on this is Sherrod Brown. He re-entered the Senate battle. He had lost back in 2024 to Bernie Moreno, a very, very hard, very Trumpian kind of Republican. Lost by about 200,000 votes. Sherrod Brown is re-entering, and he's challenging John Husted, who was appointed to his Senate seat because J.D. Vance, who won the seat back in 2022, if I remember correctly, after J.D. Vance had got brought up to be the VP. John Husted took his place. So it'll be interesting to see how that race plays out. Actually, I think that Vance race was had to have been back in 2020. So a little small correction there. I guess in terms of the elections, I really only care about the Ohio race since that's the one that's going to impact me. And as far as the Ohio race goes, I'm not that big a fan of Vivek Ramaswamy. I thought his 2020 presidential campaign in the Republican field was really, really bad. I thought of him as he's just another Trump candidate, but he's just there to kind of instill chaos. He didn't really say anything bad about Trump. He just aligned himself almost purely without saying that he was against Trump. I just wasn't that big a fan of him. I think that he was Also pretty disappointing in his efforts being recruited by the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, back when that had started. So again, I just think he's a bit of a disappointing candidate, and it's not going to be a very comfortable election for me to go and watch and possibly support. And then circling back to the fraud claims, there was a breaking story back from, I think, a couple of weeks ago from a conservative influencer type guy named Nick Shirley. He had, with the help of someone else, identified a lot of Somali-run daycares that have been receiving federal funds with no children at their facilities. This obviously spiked a bunch of questions. Why are we funding this if they're not actually using the services that they should be? He was going around, he had some documents pulled up, he had gotten some bystander opinions on whether or not there were children showing up to these facilities. But there really wasn't anything substantial in the video that I watched. There was no actual financial documents. There were some law documents that I didn't really think pertained because they didn't have the evidence for those financial documents. And the facilities that they kept going to, they were outside the operating hours. There were still people there, but there were no children because that's not when the facility operated. So it was just kind of a lot of making claims. And as a result of this, there was a lot of other state legislators wanting to look into possible fraud in their state. And one of those was Ohio. Ohio legislators had put forward some kind of memo or notice saying that, hey, we want an investigation here to look into fraud. We saw this in Minnesota, and we want to make sure that this is stopped in Ohio. Obviously, this has led, since everything on the internet, once it gets posted, someone's getting some kind of abuse sent their way. DeWine was trying to defend the daycares that are operating in places like Columbus from any kind of abuse that they've been experiencing. I guess with these fraud claims, the important thing to prove fraud is documentation. I don't think that Nick Shirley has the documentation to prove that. And I think that the Ohio legislators wishing for the investigation into possible fraud, I don't know what they think that they're going to get out of this. I very much take issue every single time that there is some kind of groundbreaking thing that just gets posted and there's no documentation of it. People are making these wild claims, or they already arrive at their conclusion and then they come to jam up some kind of quote evidence later. But in reality, there's actually no evidence to speak of. I find that just really frustrating from just I would like abuses and fraud to be reported and accurate so that they stop. But I think when you keep making the case that, oh, there's fraud, and you don't really come up with anything to prove it, it kind of diminishes the case of that. It diminishes the impact, the punch towards it. And I find that kind of disappointing. So, I mean, I don't know. I think if an investigation to happen, I'd be interested to see what the results of those were. I'd be interested if Nick Shirley would actually, post anything relevant, any kind of actual documents saying that those daycares are indicating fraud. I don't know how he would get those documents, but that's another thing entirely. And speaking of things that people were making a bunch of claims about without any kind of, I guess, evidence or clear investigation, is this killing that had just happened recently. So Renee Good, this is a super viral video. Everyone's seen it, everyone's been posting about it, and everyone has opinions about it. Renee Good, she's a woman that was driving through a crowd of ICE agents on a road where other people were out protesting. There was a confrontation that happened, and shortly afterwards, an ICE agent shoots and kills her as she's driving her car. The right, they're saying that this woman was a domestic terrorist and that the ICE agent was acting in self-defense. And the left was saying that she was a legal observer and unjustly killed. Now, I've seen a couple of videos about this. I've seen one from a little bit further away from the car. I've seen one from the cell phone video of the ICE agent talking with her. And I think from this, the important thing is to get away from these very ultra-partisan narratives and these already rush to conclusions about what had happened. I think that it's important, if there's any other videos, they need to get released and they need to get viewed. I think that there should be a full investigation into the matter. And I think the right would do a service to themselves because they're technically the ones in control, because they're the ones that had, for lack of a better phrase, incited the action. It was the ICE agent that shot and killed her. I think it would very much benefit them to cooperate with local authorities, because if they don't, then they're just being perceived as like a foregone conclusion, like, oh, this definitely happened, he was definitely acting in self-defense, and then the left will automatically go after them. It's like, you didn't cooperate with local authorities. How can this investigation be trusted? I think if you want to like return to trust in the institutions, and trust in the people, and trust in like others, like you have to cooperate with like the opposition. Like you want a solid view of what had happened, a full picture, nonpartisan like reporting of the incident. I don't think that's going to happen. Ultimately, I think the right is already kind of digging themselves into a hole with this. And also, this is just like a tragic situation. Like I see people posting about this all the time, and it's just, you know, it's so sad that every single time one of these situations happen, like everyone's rushing to judgment about like, oh, what actually caused this? Like what happened and like what my opinion is. It's like, we can just wait a little bit. It's fine to just wait, like let the body rest and just wait a little bit. It'll take a bit of time. Who knows? The investigation might take a month, 6 months, a year, something like that. But it's important to wait. And then once we do that, we can kind of like talk about it afterwards. But yeah, that never really happens with regards to some of these tragic situations. All right, I've talked a lot. I really appreciate you watching if you have done so far. That's about the end of the topics that I had. But the last thing that I wanted to, I guess, touch on is something that I want to do for these videos if they end up continuing. One thing that I used to do in high school was help contribute to mission collection. I'd always put $5 in every single week towards some kind of charity or some kind of important mission, for lack of a better word. Yeah, something important. Like I think it's a great virtue. Charity is an amazing virtue for those of us who are more fortunate than others to be able to give back a little bit. So every single one of these videos, I'm going to be putting $5 away, and it'll eventually get pooled into whatever total that I think is appropriate into a charity that I find to be valuable, doing some kind of good mission. I recommend, if you're watching this, do the same. Just set aside $5 a week, put it towards a good cause. You know, I think it lifts the spirits a bit and kind of gets people interested in different kind of communities, different kind of, you know, just like, I guess like a little bit of well-being towards others. So that's what I'm doing every single week. I'll mention the charities or causes that I'm donating to when they come up. So yeah, I think that's about all I have. I'll put this money to good use, I promise. I appreciate you watching again. If you want to keep watching this stuff, you want to signal to me that this is good content, leave a comment, subscribe, follow, like, all that jazz. Again, I couldn't say it enough. I really appreciate you watching, and hopefully there's going to be more on the horizon. Thanks. Have a nice night.